When I would ask you who the 10 greatest painters in art history were, chances are that the likes of Da Vinci, Michelangelo, Rembrandt, Velázquez, Klimt and Picasso make it to the list. And many would put Raffaello Sanzio da Urbino, better known as Raphael, also in that list. And if I would then ask you what the best painting in history is, you may think of the Mona Lisa, the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, the Night Watch, the Starry Night, or perhaps the Garden of Earthly Delights by Hieronymus Bosch. Well, for 5 centuries, many artists and art experts considered this painting to be the best one ever created. The Transfiguration by Raphael, showing 2 unrelated biblical events. On top is the story of the Transfiguration of Christ. At the bottom is a story of a young man who is possessed by a demon. It was the last work by Raphael and he died at age 37 before fully completing it. You may be familiar with the peaceful Madonna paintings by Raphael, or his magnificent frescoes in the Raphael rooms in the Vatican, like the School of Athens. But for some reason, the Transfiguration seems to outshine these works. And the reason was that Raphael was challenged by another artist to produce his ultimate work. To understand what motivated Raphael for this masterpiece, it is helpful to understand when and why he received the commission for this work. It was the year 1516, and arguably the 2 greatest artists alive in Italy were Raphael and Michelangelo, 2 polar opposites. They had both worked a few years earlier in the Vatican. Raphael created his amazing frescoes in the Raphael rooms, while Michelangelo created his ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. And the 2 artists had a completely different approach. Michelangelo was a serious and dedicated artist who wanted to create spectacular art and did not have much interest in romantic adventures. Raphael was a natural and talented artist who enjoyed his fame by engaging in frequent amorous activities. So then, one day, Raphael receives the commission for the Transfiguration for the Narbonne Cathedral in France. At the same time, another artist, Sebastiano del Piombo, also received a commission for the same cathedral. And the important part is that Del Piombo was a protege of Michelangelo, and the painting he created, The Raising of Lazarus, which you can see here, was based on a drawing made by Michelangelo, Raphael's biggest rival. Initially, Raphael only created half of the painting for the Transfiguration, but when he saw the impressive painting by Del Piombo, he decided to outdo himself and added many more figures to his painting to make sure that Del Piombo's painting would look mediocre next to his masterpiece. However, Raphael would never completely finish the painting, as he would die on Good Friday 1520 at age 37. Before telling how this story ends, it may be interesting to look in some more detail at both scenes, starting with the top part. It shows Jesus on top of Mount Tabor in a gleaming snow-white robe, with next to him the prophets Moses on the right and Elijah on the left. The clouds behind Jesus are illuminated and Jesus raises his arms to look towards God. Below Jesus are 3 of his disciples, from left to right, James, Peter and John. They cover their faces with their hands as the sky is too bright for their eyes. The 2 figures on the left are probably Justus and Pastor. They are 2 Christian martyrs to whom the church in which the painting was initially intended to be placed is dedicated. At the bottom left are the 9 disciples of Jesus who did not climb the mountain. They try to heal a young man who is possessed by an evil spirit. The sick young man on the right has a blue cloth wrapped around his middle and looks very pale while making a wild gesture. You can see that his eyes are looking in different directions. The man behind him in the green robe is his father who is holding him, and he looks at the disciples with hope and fear at the same time. In front of the young man, two women look at the disciples while pointing at the young man. The figure in the blue robe on the bottom left is probably Matthew. He consults a book but cannot find a solution to cure the young man. The young disciple in the yellow robe is Philip. To Philip's right, in the red robe, is Andrew. The man behind Andrew, pointing to the sick boy, is Judas Thaddeus, and the older man to his left is Simon. The man on the far left is probably Judas Iscariot. And while the disciples are unable to heal the young man, the disciple in red is pointing towards Jesus on top of the mountain. So when Raphael died, this painting was still in his studio, and it was decided to keep this painting in Rome because the painting was too good to send abroad. The painting was exposed next to the body of Raphael in the days after his death, and it was initially placed above his tomb in the Pantheon. When searching someone to finish the last bits of the painting, the Vatican ended up with his student Giulio Romano, who wasn't too shabby of an artist, as you can see in these other works by him. So one puzzling element is why Raphael combined two such different biblical stories in a single painting. Sure, they are described in the same chapters of the Bible, which are Matthew 17, Mark 9 and Luke 9. The first potential explanation is what I mentioned earlier. Raphael painted only the top part, and then after seeing the finished work by his competitor Sebastiano del Piombo, he needed a story which involved many people to include at the bottom. A second interpretation is given by Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, who wrote that the painting was clearly an integrated piece. At the bottom are the people who are suffering and need the help of Jesus, which is emphasized by the more chaotic and dark scene. And on the top is the power of Jesus, which the people at the bottom need, emphasized by the serene and bright scene. A third interpretation is that Raphael combined these two scenes because of the meaning of his name. Raphael means God heals in Hebrew. This would explain that the disciples at the bottom could not heal the young man, but that Jesus, through the power of God, could heal him. There's no consensus among experts about the most likely interpretation, so you can pick the one you prefer. The painting is not only a beautiful artwork in itself, it has inspired countless artists over time. Raphael painted it during the High Renaissance period, but it contains both elements of the Mannerism and Baroque styles of painting, styles that would develop later in the 16th and 17th century. Well, I hope you learned something from this video. I would love to hear your thoughts about this work in the comments section down below. Do you think that it ranks among the best paintings ever created? Finally, I would appreciate it if you can support the channel by hitting the thumbs up button and subscribe. It really helps the channel. Thanks for watching.